Today on this 2004 Ford F250 Super Duty, we're going to show you the Firestone Level Command II, part number F25158. First off, this will allow you to control the air pressure levels from the vehicle cab. It operates the bags with a single switch. Now this system is designed to level one pair of air springs, equally on each side. And this kit comes with everything you need to control the air springs. And the air compressor is actually rated for 130 pounds max PSI. First up, let's go ahead and find a location for our compressor. We're back here underneath the truck on the driver's side frame rail and behind basically the transfer case for the four-wheel drive system. We'll go ahead and mount it to the frame right here. We'll go ahead and mark the holes using a small drill bit. And this compressor has 4 mounting holes. One thing to note, now we actually changed our drill bit up to a 3/16, gives a little extra wiggle room to install our hardware. Now we're going to use the supplied hardware, which will be these small Phillips head bolts. I'm just going to simply run them from the outside to the inside. Take the compressor, go ahead and put it into place. And on the outside we'll get a flat washer and then the lock nut. This will repeat on all 4 contact points. And now if you mount this to a thinner piece of sheet metal instead of the frame, it does come with an extra washer to put behind the head of the bolt as well. Now we're going to leave these loose so we can maneuver the rest of the hardware in place. Okay, now once we have all our hardware loosely installed, we'll go ahead and tighten it down using the Phillips screwdriver and a 3/8 deep well socket. Now when we tighten these down, we just want to make them snug. We don't want to crush them. Now while we're here, let's go ahead and ground our compressor. Black wire with the ring terminal, and we'll attach it to the body right here. It's the hollow section of the bodywork, so it won't go through to the inside. Okay, now let's go ahead and work with a wire harness. This is our relay right here, and we'll go ahead and attach it right next to our ground and make our initial wire connection. I'm going to use the same self-tapping screw as before. It's a number 10 screw that uses a 5/16 nut driver. Our orange wire on this harness right here will connect up to the red wire on our compressor. We'll simply push the two together, and I like to add some electrical tape to it as well. Alright, now let's go ahead and take a moment and zip tie our wires. I'm basically going to fold over my orange and red wire together, and I'll attach it to the factory wire harness using the supplied zip ties. Cut off our excess. Then we need to route these up towards the engine compartment. A red wire especially needs to go to the battery. So to help us do that, we're going to drop a pull wire from the top towards the bottom. So basically we're going to run these 2 wires up following the factory wire harness. Okay, and we'll go ahead and zip tie those in a few locations as well. Let's try to make sure we stay away from anything that's hot and or moving. Okay, now what we're using for a pull wire is actually an old piece of airline tubing, but this also could be any piece of wire or any other material that you could run down here and holds its shape so you can guide it towards the bottom. Basically, you just want to stay close to the firewall here and away from the engine as far as possible. Here's our piece of airline tubing and the wires we need to bring up. We'll just wrap them together and run them back up towards the top. Make sure you pull up all our excess wire. I think we'll zip tie it at the top here to help keep it secure. Alright, now let's continue on working on wires. We're just going to go ahead and just separate them out. The red wire is going to run straight to our battery, and our white wire eventually go to the inside. So let's just bundle this up and just get it out of the way for now. Alright, now our fuse holder here has a short end, and that's going to get a ring terminal and attach to the positive side of the battery. We'll pull up the cover here. We'll attach this post right here. Let's go ahead and strip our wire back and add the blue ring terminal. And we'll remove this nut here using a 10mm socket. Now ours is just a little bit on the small side, so we'll just put a notch in the ring and allow it to stretch out a little bit and put on over the top. And then we'll reinstall the nut. Let's bundle up our excess wire here. Okay, now let's go ahead and turn our attention back to the white wire, and we'll go ahead and find a location to run it through to the inside. Okay, now to pull a wire through, we're going to use this grommet right here. I'm going to take my screwdriver and slowly poke it through, and we'll make a sizable cut in it. We need to eventually run a couple pieces of airline tubing through there as well. We'll get out our old airline tubing and bring that white wire in first. Okay, we'll push a sizable amount through and then pull out the rest. Now we'll pull a good chunk of it through, then we'll attach our white wire to it and pull it back through as well. Let's go ahead and separate the two. And we'll pull out our white wire. We'll take up all the slack. Make sure it's not tangled up in the engine compartment either. We'll go ahead and add our airline tubing, and we'll run that up towards the inside as well. Now before I install it to the compressor, I'm going to go ahead and use a tubing cutter to make sure the end is square, and I'll push it into the fitting here. Now, there's a special fitting that comes in the hardware kit that threads into here, and then our airline tubing will go into that. So let's go ahead and install that right now. Just make sure the sealant that's on our brass fitting fully engage the threads, and we're good to go. Maybe about 1.5 turns is all you need after it stops when it's finger tight. Okay, now for airline tubing, we'll simply just push it into place. Push it in until it stops, then push it one more time. And then they'll give it a little tug back to make sure it's secure, and that's it. So we'll go ahead and take this airline tubing and basically follow our wiring back up to the inside of the vehicle. Now I didn't zip tie it yet because I'll do that after I run my second airline going back towards the airbags. Okay, let's go ahead and attach our two wires together using some more electric tape. Okay, and we'll pull it through. All right, just pull enough of it through. We'll go ahead and untape it. And we'll go ahead and take up all our slack. And while you're doing this, make sure the airline does not get kinked up. All right, now we'll go ahead and route our airline tubing to roughly the center of the dashboard here. A little extra length for working room, and we'll cut off our excess. Okay, now we got our airline ran in. This is going to be one of two lines. So to keep these from getting confused with one another, let's go ahead and put this line onto our control panel. This is the line that came from our air compressor, and we're going to install it into the fitting here where it's labeled SUP supply. So to make it easier to slide onto, I've got some hot water here. We'll stick the airline tubing in there and let it warm up for about a minute or so. That'll make it just a little bit more pliable, and we can easily slide it onto the barb fitting. So let's go ahead and push it into place. Once it's warmed up, it makes it relatively easy to slide on. Okay, all right, next we'll go ahead and run our airline from our output from our control back to the airbags on the rear axle. However, due to the replacement of our air compressor to make it a little easier to install and service, we actually ran out of airline tubing. So we can easily fix that by adding a small section. We're going to use part number F0938. This is the Firestone 1/4-inch airline tubing that's 18 foot long. So that should be more than enough for our purpose here. Let's take our new airline tubing that'll go out to the back axle. We'll go ahead and connect our airline tubing to our pull wire here. We'll tape the two together and pull it through. Okay, once we have our new airline tubing ran through, we'll pull out all our excess and leave out enough to go back to our panel. We pulled the mass majority through. Let's go ahead and pull some back. Or let's go ahead and get our length finalized. We'll go ahead and heat this end up just like we did before and slide it over the top. All right, let's go ahead and run our airline tubing right back down, following the same route the other one came back up. Now, everybody's gonna route their airlines a little bit different, but this is how we did ours. Following our first one, we basically followed the wire harness going all the way back, past our compressor, on the inside edge of the frame, then along the gas tank, where we're tucked up inside the frame. We was able to use some zip ties to go around the frame and guide it on back. Then we ran it over to our airbag on the driver's side. Now we're down here to our airbags here. Now these were previously installed. Now this kit is designed for an upgrade from the airbags that have already been installed. Now in this case, I've already omitted the airlines that are going to the airbags. So we're basically kind of starting from scratch with plumbing the airlines to the airbags. Make things as simple as possible. Okay, cut off our excess and run it straight into the airline fitting. Same thing as the fitting going into the compressor. Push it in until it stops, and then push it in one more time. Okay. It's always a good idea to have a little bit extra length in there in case you have to redo the fitting, because sometimes they don't seat all the way and you just have to cut it off fresh and start over. All right, now we're going to take a T and install it in here. Then we'll take that airline and run it over to the other bag. So let's go ahead and put in our T. So cut that in half and install our T. Push until it stops, and then once again. Let's go and take our excess line, run it to the last part of a T, and I'm going to run this around the back and towards the front again. This way we can stay away from exhaust as much as possible. All right, we'll go ahead and cut to length. Now when airbags are first installed, they had some heat shielding for the tubing. So don't forget to save that, and we'll reinstall it on our new airline tubing. Then we'll go ahead and zip tie and secure airline tubing back here. Okay, we'll cut off our excess zip tie. Now we have some more airline tubing left over, and that's a good thing because we need to hook this up for our airline input or a snorkel for our pump. Okay, so our airline's simply going to push onto this fitting right here for starters. Again, we'll go ahead and heat it up in our hot water and then slide it into place. Okay, now we'll go ahead and run the rest of this up back into our engine compartment. So that way, the other end will get its filter, and we don't have to worry about any water getting inside the pump. Basically, when we run this up to the engine compartment, we're going to follow the same lines we already installed. Okay. We'll go ahead and pull up our airline for our snorkel. Okay, make sure we take out all our slack. Now it's going to leave that alone for now. Let's get our air filter ready. We need to put on the fitting. We'll just go ahead and thread it on and maybe snug it up with a 5/8 wrench. Okay, let's set that down for now. And we'll go ahead and cut off our excess tubing. Now I think I'm going to mount my filter somewhere in this area right here. So I'll go ahead and cut it to length. And we'll go ahead and add the airline tubing to the barb fitting. Okay. Now there's a little mount right here to install into a hole. There's actually a factory hole right here that looks like it'll fit. Also, this assembly is so light, you can probably just zip tie it to something as well and be just as safe. Okay, we'll go ahead and zip tie our line one more time, just make sure it doesn't get tangled with anything else. And we should be good to go. With this in place, our compressor has nice clean filtered air to go to it, or this will increase the life of the compressor. All right, now let's go ahead and work with the two wires coming out of our gauge here. Now we have two white wires and two spade connectors. Now it doesn't matter which wire we use, but we're going to take the white wire with this connector here from our compressor and we'll push it into one of the wires. Again, it does not matter. Now this other wire has to go to ground. I'm going to cut this off and add a small ring terminal to it that comes with the kit, and I'm going to attach it to some sheet metal behind the dashboard. Let's go ahead and make things easier to ground it by taking off the panel below the steering wheel. There's just 4 of these guys we have to undo. Using a flat blade screwdriver, a quarter will work just fine as well. We'll sneak a wire from below and up top, and we'll attach it to sheet metal right here. Now I'm going to use a self-tapping screw that uses a 1/4 inch nut driver that does not come with the kit. All right, I'll go ahead and install the screw first, and then add my wire. With these 2 wires hooked up, we can now try out our compressor. Our test works out just fine. Next up, our 2 wires for illumination. Now this is going to require us to extend these 2 wires to get to our power supply and ground. So we can use any type of miscellaneous wire we have laying around to extend them. Let's go ahead and get a couple extra length of wires ready. And we'll add some butt connectors. Again, you can use any type of connector. feel comfortable with. The kit doesn't come with this extra leads or butt connectors. Let's go ahead and hook our wires together. Now the light bulb inside here doesn't care which one's ground and which one's power. Okay, let's go ahead and take our white wire. We'll make that our ground and add a small ring terminal to it. And we'll connect that to the same ground we installed previously. Now for our brown wire, we're going to run it up in here as well. Now we'll go ahead and attach this to a wire that also lights up our dashboard lights. Now our illumination circuit, we're going to use this wire right here that comes out of this blue-green connector. It's a brown wire for white stripe. We're going to use a quick splice connector that does come with this kit. We'll snap it onto the wire and then take our new wire, run up next to it, and use some pliers to connect it to. Alright, so let's come on every time we turn on the headlights. Alright, now we know that works. We don't have to do anything else. We'll go ahead and close the lid on our connection point here. Next, we'll go ahead and mount our gauge to the bottom of the dash in the center. We'll go ahead and mount ours towards the bottom on a flat surface. We'll go ahead and use some more of the screws that we use for a ground. Now this gauge does come with some hardware to do that with, basically a bolt and nut and some flat washers. However, it can be really impossible to get behind here. So we'll use the self-tapping screws instead. Okay, now we do have some adjustment up and down, so we'll situate it the way we want it and tighten the screws down for good. Okay, all that remains is we'll go ahead and bundle up our wires. We'll use some loom material to help hide the colors on the parts that you can see and hide it up behind the dashboard. Now we'll go ahead and use some zip ties to help secure our wires now. Now, we kind of ran out of red ones already, so it's always a good idea to get extra zip ties when you do electrical. All right, let's go ahead and put our cover back into place. All right, last detail is let's go ahead and pull out our old pull wire, or old airline tubing that we used to run our wires. Okay, with everything in place, we'll go ahead and give it a final check. Lights, and we'll check out our compressor. Okay, we're on to 30 psi. Now I'm just using some soapy water here, and we'll spray down all our connections and look for bubbles. Okay, so far so good. Let's go back to the airbags and check the T and the airbags. All right, with that, that'll finish it for the install of the Firestone Level Command II, part number F250 on this 2004 Ford F250 Super Duty crew cab.